Alright guys, so in this video we're focusing on functions that have something to return, or specifically in this case functions that have a return type int. So let's just quickly go build our function. Type in int addition and then with empty parameters, and then we can write as int r, and we can let r equals 5 plus 5 and then add a semicolon, and then this is the main part. You have to remember that we have to type return r. Now this function is returning something. Well, in this case it's returning variable r. So now that we have our working function, we can now prototype it and call it in the main. Now again, before doing that, this is called the return type. In this case, return type is int. This is our function name and these are the parameters with no arguments, or let's say no parameters or empty parameters. Well, we're going to cover parameters in the couple of next tutorials, but in the to keep it simple, I have not covered parameter in this tutorial and the tutorial before, the last tutorial, so we're going to do that later. So now that we have our function, let's just prototype it first. Now that we have prototyped it, make sure we have this look clean. Okay, now that we have a bit cleaner look, now we have to define int z. Now why we're defining int z? Because you're going to use z and like set it equal to addition with empty parameters and an equal to, like semicolon, not equal to. And then we can do something like cout and say 5 plus 5 equals and then z. So we can write 5 plus 5 and then add a space to that, and then write in z, add a semicolon to that, and of course we forgot the equal to sign. Okay, so make sure you have this format correctly, otherwise it will look a little bit like clogged up. So let's just go build and run the program and see what we have. Now our function says 5 plus 5 equals 10. Now one last time, what we did over here is we built a function int addition with empty parameters. Okay, so we set that function and like in the function, in the body of the function, we typed in the variable r and set r equals 5 plus 5, and then we returned r. Now this return r, what this return r does is it returns the answer, because r in this case 5 plus 5 is 10, so it returns 10. So what this is, this r gives this 10 to this addition. Like when you're going to call the function in the main, now this addition has indirectly value 10. So that is the case. This is, you have to understand, this is really important, that this is indirectly sending 10 to this addition. Although we could have like just type 5 plus 5 equals 10, but we're trying to build here a function and demonstrate what your functions can do. So indirectly the value of r is 10. So now when we prototyped it and then we called in the function, what we did was we typed in z, set z equals to this addition, and when this in the int main, when the addition was called, then our default statement for printing out was cout 5 plus 5 equals z. So well, in this case z equals addition and addition equals r, and r equals addition. And what is the value of addition? 10. Why? Because 5 plus 5 equals 10. So it's like playing the game indirectly. So again, this is just to demonstrate the usage of functions that have a return type. Again, this is very you might be thinking this is a very dumb way of producing function, but no, when we like in the real world we do massive programs, the functions usually, and not usually, they definitely come in handy. Now one last thing I want to tell you is that there is a shortcut. Now this shortcut is applicable to the last tutorial what we did in that was void. We covered the function type void. The return type was void. Well, in this case it's int. So what you can do is, although you have prototyped in this thing, like below the above the main and below your headers, you can do what you can do is you can copy this, control copy, and then you can paste it like above your main and below your header, so your compiler runs from top to bottom. Now it knows that you have built a function and you have defined it over there, right after the next line. You have defined it from here. So now now it knows that I have like it received the prototype as well as the function building. So step 1, that was building the function. Step 2, that was prototyping the function. You have actually completed step 1 and step 2 in these, like, let's say 5 lines. So this is our pretty much shortcut. You can do it when you're working in short files. So let's just remove this and see we have our simple looking program. So instead of just prototyping it, we have defined this here. So this is a little shortcut I want to tell you. So now let's just go and build and run the program. Let me just close this and see if it runs perfectly. And it did. 5 plus 5 is indeed 10. So this is the little challenge for you. In the last tutorial where we have two functions, Sarah and Hannah, go to the last tutorial, copy the code, and then apply this shortcut, this like copying the whole function and pasting it on the face of prototype. So in this way, this is a much shorter way to do your coding. So in the next tutorial, what we're going to do, we're going to cover functions that use parameters. Now what are parameters? And parameters is that we have this a little extra information that we pass int a and something like that. Now we're going to cover in this next tutorial, but I'm going to a little bit like give you an intro. The extra information in between these parentheses is called parameters, function parameters and function arguments. Some people say it function arguments, some people say it function parameters. So that's a little knowledge for your next tutorial. So hopefully you enjoyed the video and understood at least 20% of it. If you didn't understand, go and watch the last video, because this is actually the continuation of your last video. So yeah, see you guys in the next video.